In a quiet, remote location, far from the hustle and bustle of the city, Mrs. Parker lives alone with only a tenant named Clay, a beekeeper leading a simple life in a barn. One day, while managing her finances, Mrs. Parker receives a virus alert on her laptop. She contacts the number displayed and is connected to a scam operation led by Garnet, who takes the opportunity to show his trainees how to manipulate their targets. Garnet convinces Mrs. Parker that the notification came from a pre-installed software advising her to update it. Since Mrs. Parker isn't tech-savvy, he offers to handle it remotely, asking her to install a program called Friendly Friend that grants him access. Once installed, Garnet mutes the call and with his team, discovers sensitive information about Mrs. Parker, including her life insurance, pension, and a charity account containing $2 million. Garnet begins to siphon off her funds, assuring her that it's part of the normal process. He even promises to refund her subscription fee, claiming he will transfer it back to her account. When she attempts to verify the transfer, Mrs. Parker notices a withdrawal of $50,000. By using emotional manipulation, Garnet gets her to input the master password, and in a flash, all her accounts are drained. As Mrs. Parker sits in disbelief, her phone starts alerting her to fraudulent transactions, and the gravity of the situation begins to sink in. Meanwhile, Clay, who has been busy harvesting honey, heads to Mrs. Parker's house to deliver a jar of honey to her. He finds the door unanswered and enters, noticing the fire alarm blaring and something feels off. Upon entering the next room, he discovers a fired gun. Suddenly, he's ambushed by Verona, Mrs. Parker's daughter, who orders him to drop to his knees. Clay expresses his sympathy, but Verona insists that her mother didn't commit suicide. Clay calmly explains that he was just bringing honey, and his story checks out. When Verona investigates her mother's accounts, she realizes the large sum of money might be the reason for Mrs. Parker's demise. The investigation reveals Clay's innocence, but it also uncovers the scam, leading Verona to vow to bring justice for her mother. Determined to make things right, Clay contacts a secret group of beekeepers he once belonged to, asking for help tracking down Garnet's operation. Soon he receives an address for the call center where the scammers operate. Arriving at the location with 2 gas canisters, Clay is stopped by security but pushes through, ready to destroy the operation. He quickly disarms the guards and confronts the scammers, forcing them to vow never to exploit the vulnerable again. He sets the center on fire, leaving no room for escape, while a family unknowingly calls the center about the virus. At Danforth Enterprises in Boston, Derek Danforth receives a call from Garnet, informing him of the attack. Garnet explains that Clay tore through the security like it was nothing, burning the building down. The company has no idea who is responsible. In response, Derek seeks advice from his CIA veteran advisor, wondering if they can track down Clay. The advisor refuses to get involved, but Derek instructs Garnet to investigate the latest deals made and track down anyone connected to them, plotting his next move to retaliate against Clay. Garnet vows to take action, but as time passes, Verona arrives at the scene of the destruction. While the perpetrator remains unidentified, she privately relishes a small victory against those responsible. Meanwhile, Clay continues with his peaceful life as a beekeeper, unaware that Garnet and his mercenaries are planning revenge. When Garnet arrives at Mrs. Parker's property and spots Clay leaving, he decides to retaliate by destroying Clay's hives. Hearing the gunshots, Clay activates machines to mask the noise, waiting in the shadows. He silently takes down Garnet's men one by one, eventually leaving Garnet alone, panicked and facing his downfall. Clay severs Garnet's fingers, leaving him alive as a grim reminder. Back in the investigation, Verona is notified about a fire at her mother's house. When she arrives, she discovers the bodies are tied to the same scam operation and everything clicks into place. Clay was behind it. Garnet calls Derek, expecting a report on the situation, but things are spiraling out of control. He describes Clay as a beekeeper ninja before Clay drags him out of the car and sends him off the bridge. Picking up Garnet's phone, Clay calls Derek, warning him that he's next, sending a chill down Derek's spine. Derek turns to his CIA advisor, Wallace, but he's visibly frightened of Clay. Wallace warns Derek that the beekeeper is a man of relentless focus and will, something Derek lacks. He explains that Clay is no ordinary threat. As the FBI connects the dots on the call centers and realizes they are all linked to one mysterious ringleader, Clay remains elusive. The only lead they have is his birth certificate, which hints that he may have been part of a classified program. Jessica, desperate to protect her son, contacts Wallace, promising him more shares in her company. In return, Wallace reaches out to the CIA, where the manager of a special beekeeper program confirms that Clay is a retired agent. With that information, Wallace prepares for the worst, though he remains troubled. Clay's next encounter is a violent one, as a woman who's clearly not intimidated by him attacks him. He quickly overpowers her without weapons, and when she reaches for a minigun, Clay uses a jar of honey to set her on fire. He cuts off her finger before driving off, further solidifying his dangerous reputation. The Beekeepers, now neutral, leave Wallace to handle things on his own. The FBI catches up with Clay's trail, discovering the bodies and learning more about his connection to the Beekeeper program. They conclude that he's heading for Boston. Wallace, now fully aware of the secret operation Clay is connected to, assembles a team of ex-military personnel, knowing they are no match for Clay's specialized training. With the Psycho Woman's finger as a key, Clay gains access to her arsenal and intelligence, pinpointing the location of Derek's operations. Meanwhile, Verona alerts the FBI about Clay's next target, NSTR United, the company overseeing Derek's global call centers. The FBI grants full funding to stop Clay, something unheard of in their usual operations. In Boston, the FBI SWAT team surrounds Derek's building, but Clay knows all entrances and confirms there's only one way in, through the front. When they close in on him, Clay fights back, taking down 15 armed men with ease. Holding one of them hostage, he walks in, ready to fulfill his mission. Inside the building, mercenary commander Pettis tries to evacuate those unarmed, but the ringleader, Golden Goose, refuses. He arrogantly calls Derek, who reprimands Pettis for failing to handle the situation. The armed mercenaries remain, applauding as they leave, unaware that Clay is among them, silently throwing one of them around. He quickly silences the floor, and Golden Goose still doesn't realize the gravity of the situation. However, when Pettis' men start shooting, he drops to the floor in fear. Clay runs down the hallway, climbing up to the ceiling, taking down one man before using the fire alarm to mask the noise. He ambushes Pettis, disarms him, and knocks him out with a fire extinguisher. Outside, Verona directs the agents to move in as Clay sets up wires for his next plan. The mercenaries think they cornered him in an elevator, but Clay blows the cable, causing the elevator to plummet to the ground, taking out those who escaped. The agents, preferring the stairs, find themselves sitting ducks as Clay picks off the remaining mercenaries in the dark. Once all of them are dead, Clay turns his attention to Golden Goose. Using a stapler as a torture device, he forces Golden Goose to reveal who is in charge of the operation, explaining that his actions are in retaliation for those who hurt the one person who ever cared for him. Finally, Golden Goose cracks and names the masterminds behind the scheme. Verona arrives at the scene, speaking with Clay. She reassures him that there are laws for what he's doing, but Clay argues that some things can't be fixed by laws, but he can fix them. As the FBI agents close in, Clay makes his escape, leaving them with the Golden Goose and his crew. Verona now knows where Clay's next target is, a luxurious restaurant where Derek is anxiously waiting. Wallace, receiving the news that his mercenaries are all dead, considers calling Derek's mother for help, as Clay can't take action if he's near Jessica and her people. Derek, unaware of the danger, calls Jessica and asks if he can visit her. She agrees, and it's revealed that Jessica is none other than the President of the United States. Now Clay must face a new challenge, eliminating the Queen Bee. Verona's agent friend suggests letting Clay do what he's planning, but Verona refuses, even though it might be the morally right choice. She informs the FBI deputy director that Clay is targeting money. The company, NSTR United, uses data mining software to target individuals with no hairs, seizing their assets. However, there's a bigger issue. Danforth Enterprises, the company behind NSTR, is also tied to U.S. government agencies. The company is run by Jessica Danforth, who recently became president. The deputy director wants to keep this information under wraps, as Jessica's involvement in the scam makes her a target, and the president's life is now at risk. At Danforth's beach house, security is tight, but Verona tightens it further. Derek is already there, relaxing with a beer, but Wallace is panicking, unsure if the Secret Service can stop Clay. Wallace has hired the best mercenaries, including Yellow, who once killed a beekeeper at great cost, hoping for similar luck this time. Jessica, furious, learns of the danger too late. The Secret Service goes to extreme measures, welding shut every manhole and thoroughly checking every vehicle. However, Clay has other plans. He makes his way into the sewer system, bypassing the sealed manhole and using a skateboard to reach a car. One of the agents spots him, but Clay incapacitates him and uses his uniform as a disguise. With Yellow and his squad arriving, the estate is as secure as any location could be, but Clay has timed explosives on his side. Disguised and blending in with the guests, he makes his move as Verona observes the deputy director speaking with the president. She realizes Jessica is learning the truth and takes her son into a private room where only the three of them remain. The deputy director calls out the family about their involvement in illegal funding, and Jessica directs the question to Derek, the head of the business. Derek grows uneasy as he searches for his targets. Meanwhile, Clay is spotted by Verona, who gives him a nod. She immediately notifies the Secret Service that Clay is in the house. The kill squad is on high alert, surrounding him outside. Clay is about to surrender, but a mysterious item in his hand makes Wallace give the go-ahead for an execution. However, Clay has other plans. He detonates the cars, causing a distraction, and takes out a few of the agents, making his way into the house. Yellow remains on Clay's trail, but Clay is determined to minimize deaths. He takes an agent hostage, ensuring safe passage through the yard, where he systematically dismantles the remaining kill squad members. He's on a direct path to his main target, but at this point, the family is embroiled in a heated argument. Jessica blames Derek for their predicament, claiming she would never have won the election without the illegal funding. Derek, however, isn't concerned with morals. He simply needed to get the job done. Clay, like clockwork, continues his methodical approach through the agents, covering every angle and ensuring no one shoots him in the back. Alone, Jessica decides that she will expose Derek and his use of data mining software to the world, even if it costs her everything. Clay is only moments away from the room with Derek and the others when Yellow finally confronts him. The two engage in hand-to-hand combat, each trying to gain the upper hand. At this point, Clay seems like an unstoppable force, and Yellow isn't much of a match. The missing leg becomes a fatal flaw for Yellow, who ultimately meets his end. As Clay finishes dealing with the kill squad, Verona, who might be the only person Clay has a soft spot for, tends to her bleeding wound. Wallace, trying to reason with Clay, tells him he's proven his point and could still turn back and live a quiet life. But Clay knows it's too late for that. It's personal now. He plants a claymore on the door and sits Wallace down, preparing for the final confrontation. As Clay blows the door open and enters the room, Derek shoots the director and takes his mother hostage. Verona makes her entrance just as the standoff begins. Clay gives Verona an ultimatum: choose whether to serve the law or justice. Without hesitation, Clay takes out Derek with a single shot and makes his escape. The president is unharmed, but the choice remains for Verona. After a tense moment, she chooses justice over the law. Clay gives her one final nod before leaping into the unknown, where he has his suit stashed with swim gear. As he escapes, the screen fades to black. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this.